Will Justice Clarence Thomas retire from the Supreme Court soon? This is something I barely hear anyone talking about, and I made a big deal out of it before the 2024 election. I said the Supreme Court is very much at stake in this election. We have Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito being the oldest justices and the most conservative. Clarence Thomas is the very oldest. He's the only one born in the 1940s. He was appointed all the way back in 1991 by George H.W. Bush. He had a very contentious hearing, unlike the other justice Bush nominated, David Souter. So he has been on the U.S. Supreme Court for about 33 years. And there's something interesting about him, something that leads me to believe he might not actually retire under Trump's presidency. Because make no mistake, he does want someone like Trump to replace him on the court, as in pick a justice to replace him. He probably doesn't want Trump on the Supreme Court, in case you were construing what I said that way. But he wants someone who strongly agrees with him, someone who's staunchly conservative, someone who very much agrees with his hardcore originalist attitude that he purports to have, although is not always consistent on. But he's also been there 33 years. The justice who spent the longest time on the U.S. Supreme Court was William O. Douglas, a Democratic appointee under FDR. He served for 36 years, from 1939 to 1975, a massive amount of time. He was appointed when he was fairly young, in his 40s, and I think Clarence Thomas wants to up him. He wants to go to 37 years, or at least beat that record. 36 years and 209 days was how long William O. Douglas was on the U.S. Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas is at just a little bit over 33 right now. And I think that Justice Thomas wants to beat Douglas. But I also know that he's going to need to wait almost till the very end of Trump's term to retire if he wants to beat that. So we have about 3 years left till Thomas reaches Douglas, okay, in terms of 33 to 36. But we also have well over 3 years, almost 4 years, until Trump's term ends. So he's got to cut pretty close. This is just my theory, by the way. I've never interviewed Justice Thomas about this. There's no direct evidence, but it's just something to consider. We know Justice Ginsburg, she was very adamant about staying on the court as long as possible, and it ultimately came back to bite the Democrats in the butt because Trump got to replace her. She did not retire under Obama, like many people now say that she should have. And yeah, some people argue she was selfish for doing that. But if Justice Thomas wants to be selfish, if he wants to stay a while and then end up getting a Democrat to replace him after 2029 or something like that, then I think we should all give him a round of applause. And if you're a progressive, no matter how much you hate Clarence Thomas right now, you should be hoping that he does not retire. You should hope that he stays on that court throughout Trump's term. And you know what? Even if Trump is planning to appoint someone more moderate than him, someone who's center-right instead of hard-right, someone who's a little more open to thinking differently or less of a partisan hack or less corrupt, then that's not the best case scenario. The best case scenario is that later on we get someone to appoint a more left-leaning justice, a centrist at the very least, because centrists are better than center-right justices, and center-right justices are better than hard-right justices. And Clarence Thomas is very much hard-right. Out of all the justices, it is very hard to find decisions where he joins the liberal wing. There are a few throughout there are a few, but yeah, he's more conservative than Alito, I would argue. He's an originalist, but he flips his opinions when, he'll resort to anti-originalism when the person he wants to win is right-wing or would seem to bolster his views. So yeah, he's pretty insane when you think about it. But yeah, he's in his 70s, mid-70s. Keep in mind, Justice John Paul Stevens was 90 when he retired. So this guy could keep going a long time. He could be here for many more administrations to come. We don't know. But 2026 also will be the Democrats' next opportunity to take the U.S. Senate. And this could be something that could affect Thomas's decision. If Democrats get a majority in the U.S. Supreme Court, you know what they could do? They could pull a Mitch McConnell in 2016. They could. Now, I don't know if they have the balls to do that. That's a concerning thing. They would say, oh gosh, we could do that, but it would really make us look like raging hypocrites, and we don't want to be hypocrites, so we got to let Trump appoint the next justice. It's only fair. But again, you got to put your big boy pants on and realize that the Republicans have no standards. They'll do whatever they want to you, and you need to start playing the same way. So yeah, don't worry about concerns about hypocrisy. Republicans don't care about it at all. So yeah, just say, no, we're going to prevent you from nominating someone who's young and hard right. Because that's almost certainly what's going to happen. Someone in their 40s or 50s would be nominated to replace Justice Thomas or Alito or any justice who retires or passes away between now and January 2029. And that justice will probably have 30 to 40, maybe 50 years on the U.S. Supreme Court ahead. And they will issue a whole host of bad, questionable decisions that shift this country hard right and continue to aid corporate power in this country, which is the last thing we need when we've got Elon Musk, the world's richest man, using Doge to tear apart our government and benefit corporations, fighting for corporate tax cuts. It'll totally hamstring the ability of progressive Congresses in the future to pass any sort of good legislation. And obviously the US Supreme Court can't go out of its way to strike down legislation, but someone will find a way to challenge it. And the US Supreme Court then, decades into the future will still have this hard right majority, and they'll say, oh, well, this is wrong under the Commerce Clause or whatever. They'll find some way to work backwards from their conclusions. And that's not to say that everything that Congress does is constitutional, but these people will find a way to label it unconstitutional. They will interpret the Constitution in a way that benefits corporate allies of theirs, and they'll say, well, no, government can't do this. Sorry, Congress bad. These laws are unconstitutional. This is socialism. This is against the Commerce Clause. And that's what happened. That's what happened recently in Biden's term, where, they said he couldn't do student loan forgiveness. And you know what? They're entitled to do that because of the U.S. Supreme Court. But was it really the best interpretation of the law? I doubt it. Look at what happened in 2024 with Trump versus United States, or U.S. versus Trump. I forget the order. But Trump ended up getting this massive dose of immunity. John Roberts, one of his worst decisions, normally a guy who's more sane than the other conservatives, writing this majority opinion saying, well, if it's an official act, then they basically get to do whatever they want. You cannot criminally charge them for it. There's a little bit of a gray area in other ways where you can charge them. But the president has heavy amounts of immunity per the Constitution for their official acts. So it was a really dubious decision. Now, John Roberts, fortunately, is starting to change his tune on Trump. He had to come out and rebuke him. Although he did not say his name, we know exactly what was motivating him. So here's what I think. Thomas and then also kind of Alito, I think they both are going to try to stay through Trump's term. I have that prediction, and I might be wrong. And you know what? I'm not making any bets on it, so don't try and contact me to bet money on it. But I think Clarence Thomas wants to be the longest serving U.S. Supreme Court justice. William O. Douglas is considered the most far-left justice in history. Clarence Thomas, considered the most far-right justice in history. I think he wants to be the longest serving and the most far-right and replace Douglas. That's just my prediction, though. Obviously, he doesn't seem to be in poor health or anything. Same with Alito. So it looks like he's got enough steam to keep going and keep making mostly bad Supreme Court decisions. But John Roberts is definitely going to be staying. Those younger Trump appointees, they're definitely going to be staying. We got to hope that Sotomayor and Kagan and Jackson don't have any oopsies, I know they're not going to retire, but that nothing goes wrong with their health. Obviously, Kagan and Sotomayor are the ones we should be most concerned about. Jackson's born in the 1970s. She's still super freaking young, just like Gorsuch and Barrett. But that's the status of the U.S. Supreme Court. Surprised no one's talking about it. What do you think? Do you think that Clarence Thomas is planning to retire soon? That will really piss people off. That will get people on the left absolutely outraged. But if he retires after 2026 and we get a Democratic majority in the Senate, then Democrats, progressives, be ready to call your senators and tell them, hey, you gotta block Trump from nominating a Supreme Court justice. Do what the Republicans did to Obama. Give them a taste of their own medicine for the first time in forever. Get some balls, do something. Do not allow the U.S. Supreme Court to slip away into MAGA land until the 2050s or so. That's what I think we should do if that happens. We don't know if the Democrats are going to get a Senate majority, but it's possible. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Morris the Merrier, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.